After a lot of good feedback from my last video, I've made a second prototype booklet to see if I can get even more opinions on the changes and if it's what everyone had in mind. So this is part 2 of my painting journal vlog. But just so no one has to go backwards in time, I'm going to give a recap about what the first one looked like. So first off, I'm going to show the old one so we know the difference between the first prototype and the new one that'll be showing in a little bit. It starts off with the cover, and when I did these with armies in mind, which is why we've got faction, army name, and total points here. On the inside of that cover is just a mixing grid, so this is where you would just mix some paints and see how they mix it up and how the color turns out. Now, because this was supposed to be for armies, I did an army list thing. And so this is where you would list the models that you were going to paint, as well as some other features like their war gear options, quality, stuff like that, things you would use in the game. But it turned out not a lot of people like the idea of this or need this, so I'll show you how that's changed in a little bit. The main bulk of the book was these notes and fields. So the notes is just a place to put notes, but it's also deliberately that way because this page is where you put swatches. So there'd be paint, maybe a little bit of bleed through. But the idea with the swatches is you would swatch your paint, fill in what you needed in order to make that mix and what it was for and what the shade was. And so that was pretty much the standard, and then there was another mixing grid on the back. So that was the old book. And this is the new one. Now, the old one was for armies, which is why I had this stuff on the front, but because this is going to be more about projects and project base, I think the only thing that needed to be on the front was your name. So if you take this with you or have it on you at times, we know who it belongs to. Now, this updated version, the booklet is going to be for a single project. And so this will be for an army, a competition piece, stuff like that, but it'll only be for one project. A lot of people said they wanted more of a proper journal, a large book. So I'm going to do 2. There's these, which are the single thin booklets with about 16 pages, which will be for a single project. And then I will combine about 10 of these into a total book so that you would have a project book instead. There will be some differences between the two. I don't have a prototype for this one, obviously, so I'll just have to explain those differences. But when we get into the meat of this one, there will be some differences between the booklet version and the book version. So our first on the inside cover is the mixing grid. That hasn't changed other than one little thing. I did get a note about there not being any black to check for opacity of these mixes. So I added a little chiclet in each of the cells, and that should allow us to look at the opacity of the color as well as what the color looks like when mixed on the white. By removing the army list, I got tons of room to add stuff for more planning instead, planning to paint and what you plan to do with that. So project name is the first thing you would give it and when you started that project. Crucially though, I also put in the end date. This one is what's supposed to motivate you to get it done because it'll feel really good when you inevitably fill that in. And if you use this to give to a commission painter to explain kind of what you want and find out their steps so that you can repeat it later, this would also give you a good time frame for what it took them to do that commission by them filling out the start and the end date. The description is just where you can give an overview of the project for yourself if you're just doing your own army or guide, but it's also where you can put instructions to a commission painter. So let them explain what the project is, what you expect of them. You know, it's not a lot of space, just something like that. Another suggestion I got was to put a paint index, and I like that idea because putting all your paints here, there's about 30 cells, so you should have lots of room for lots of paint. It would mean that you can get them from your collection without having to dig through these cells to get exactly which paint you need, because they might repeat here, whereas here, all laid out, one at a time, you know exactly what you're going to get. Now, there was a problem with my printer in this page. I don't know why it's so pixely here. There's a miscommunication between my printer and my computer or something. It shouldn't be like that. It should be neater like these other pages. Just for the prototype, I didn't want to print another one, so that's why it looks like that. Now, the army list did do one important thing, and that was to list out all the models that need to be painted, and I wanted to keep that, and that's why I made this a model list. So this booklet's, again, still a little geared towards armies, but you can use this for something else if you needed to, and I'll explain how you do that in the book version. But for this version, I thought it would be a good place to at least list out the models that you want to paint and have a little check whether or not you finished it. So it's a little guide to go through your army, and then when that's all done, you can go back and fill in that end date. In the book version, I've left out these headers and let you fill those in yourself instead, and made this more like a checklist. So as you're planning your model, you would go in here and fill out all the steps that you need to take, what order you want to take them in, and then just check them off as you're finished, so you know where you've left off if it's going to take multiple days or painting sessions. Now, another important part of planning your models are color scheme, and so that's what these panels are going to be for. In the booklet, these will be filled with some art that you will be able to just fill in the colors in yourself. So that's why I have the headers, body, back, weapons, icons, and you'll just be able to go in with some paint and fill in those colors yourself, so that you can either give this to a commission painter and say, this is what I want it to look like, or test yourself and see what you like first before trying it on a model. In the book version of these, they'll be left blank with blank headers. So this is more, if you have your own artistic talent, you'd be able to go in and, you know, put freehand here, so you show what freehand you're doing on the cloak, maybe doodle and use it as a space to plan for yourself what you're going to do before you take any paint to a model. And so in the book version, each time this comes up, it would be blank, and it's up to you to fill in. Now for the crunchy bits, which is the notes and the swatches. Now the notes is pretty much unchanged except for one thing, and I'll show you that here. I reduced the darkness of the background. And so in the first one, it was quite a little bit distracting, a little bright. In the new one, it's still there, just a little lighter, so you'll be able to see what you're doing, but still have the theming in the journal. On the swatches themselves, I changed a few things. One of them is I made the outline on each of the cells a little lighter or a little smaller so that you can fit more into each of them. And I changed the darkness meter so that it's a little larger so you can see the different variable and shades, and it's a little neater to outline each individual cell. Now there is a decision I can make with these that I want to ask people's opinion on, is do I need the headers or not? If I take out the headers, I can increase these and give a little more writing area within each of the cells, but then I would need to have somewhere to show, oh, this cell is for this cell is for this. So I'd want your opinions on that. Is it more important to have the headers, or is it more important to have the writing space? So once again, I'm asking if you can let me know in the comments what you think of the new planning section that I replaced the army list with. What do you think of the book idea and other little things? So one of the other things I do want to mention between the book and the booklet version is that in the book version, I can change the layout a little bit as well. So I could make it, for example, take all these mixing grids and put them at the back. But otherwise, the idea would be you still have a full project on a certain number of pages, and then another project would start after them. And so there'd be about 10 projects in a single booklet, so you can keep it all in one space. One other question I've also struggled with a little bit is, should I have color to these, or just keep it black and white? Though it's mostly going to affect the cover, it would also affect the cost. Once I've got my adventure map branding layout finished, I do plan on doing one for a sci-fi booklet as well. All of the cells would be the same layout, just look a little different. So that's probably what I'll show off next time. Until then, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please subscribe. And if you'd like to support my channel, check out my Patreon, where I have new models and videos each month for you to print and paint.